Hello, and thank you for joining me for this week's episode of USDroneCast. My guest this week is Mako Reactra. She is an FPV drone racer who got to represent the United States at the 2020 World Games. We'll talk about what it takes to race drone and how she practices at home. We'll also talk about her international all-women drone team who gets to compete in events around the globe. She'll also share her experience at the World Game and what it was like for her to wear the Team USA jersey. Now, before we get started, don't forget about AZ Drone Fest. It's just around the corner on October 7th. You can register and find out all the information at azdronefest.com. Now, let's get right into this week's episode with my guest, Mako Reactra.
Welcome to USDroneCast, a podcast dedicated to drones, aerial cinematography, safety, commercial, and recreation. So get ready for engaging discussions, insightful interviews, and expert insights from top-notch professionals in the drone industry. Subscribe now and follow us on social.
Mako Reactra, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate you taking the time today to be with us.
Not a problem. I'm really excited to be here with you.
So introduce yourself. What is this name? Where does it come from?
My name is Mako Reactra. That's my pilot handle for flying FPV drones. And it actually came from a pretty old video game that came out, I think, in the 90s called Final Fantasy VII. It's still around today. I think they're on the 16th game now. So it's left a lasting impression.
Very nice. So obviously you're an FPV racer. Talk to me about how you got into this sports.
Yeah, I started flying back in winter of 2017, really small, tiny whoop drones that look like this. And then I live in Maine, so the weather here is pretty tough in the winter. We can't really fly too much outside in the winter. So once the snow melted, I kind of upgraded to the outdoor drones. And I got in with a crew. My husband flies too. We both got in with a crew locally, and they happened to race. We weren't really sure we were going to go right into racing. We kind of wanted to be freestylers and just kind of go wherever we wanted to go and take in the environment. But these guys were racing with gates and everything, so we went right into that, and I just fell in love. I was racing a freestyle drone at the time because, like I said, I really thought I was going to be into that. And since then, I've been flying with multi-GP drone racing. I've been flying with Drone Champions League, which is online right now through the simulator, and I manage a all-women's team. And I went to the World Games back in 2022 representing the United States in FPV drone racing, which actually it was their first year in the World Games. So that was pretty exciting.
What was it about racing that got your attention? Like, I know you're saying you were free flying, but what was that first experience that say, man, I'm hooked. This is what I want to do?
I think it's a little bit about the way my brain works, honestly. I thought I wanted to just kind of fly wherever, but I really wanted to be told where to go, I guess. But it's really like the speed aspect, the adrenaline rush. Because if you're freestyling, you can rip pretty hard, but when you're flying race gates, you're going as full throttle as you can. And you have to get really good at proximity, and that's really fun. I really like to strive for perfection and keep trying to break my times and, beat my friends racing too.
Well, I mean,
so a little bit of competitiveness there too.
Yeah, no doubt. I bet there is. But you joke around saying, "Oh, I wanted to be told where to go," but that is something that is challenging when it's not like just you flying wherever you want, and you have to find those lines and you have to stay within those gates. So talk to me about kind of like finding those lines.
Yeah, there's a few ways to do it. If it's a big race, they'll put the track on a simulator, so we're able to fly the track ahead of time and really perfect those lines. A lot of times we don't get to fly the track ahead of time. We get there and we do a course walk. So someone will take us around and show us where to go. And we fly in goggles. So I like to watch the fastest pilots fly first to kind of see their lines and, the shortcuts that the ways they cut time. So I'll do that a bit. And then we get a couple practice rounds and then we're racing.
So for a guy like me who's never flown FPV, so I'm on the cinematography side, like I find it fascinating, but then I see you practice, or I saw some videos of you racing, And I can't even like comprehend how you remember like the course. Like it's just like nonstop spinning, and I'm like, I don't even know how you remember where to go.
I know it feels really good at this point. When I first started flying, my hands were shaking because you don't want to hit a gate, you don't want to hit another drone, you don't want to break your gear because you're constantly breaking your gear in drone racing. You have to rebuild and repair all the time. So it was a little scary at first, but now I feel like I've developed a real flow in flying, and it just feels so good. It's almost like you become one with the drone and you're in that cockpit. You're not in a chair anymore. Your feet aren't planted. You're actually flying. It just kind of takes over all your senses at
Uh,
that point.
that's such a cool description because, yeah, again, for not having put on the goggles, like, but I can totally imagine what that feeling would be like. That's so cool. Yeah.
Well,
Um,
my husband used to ride motorcycles, and I would ride a scooter that was modded out, and we sold our bikes. But he said that flying a drone gave him more of an adrenaline rush than riding his motorcycle. So, and it's much safer. So that
yeah,
might give
that's
you a
true.
little bit of an idea too.
So what is it like? So now I know you mentioned a bunch of the team that you race with, and you manage a women's team, which by the I want to talk about that too. But what is it like? Are you traveling quite a bit, or is it mostly on simulator right now?
I traveled a lot last summer for the World Games, and I went to multi-GP champs in Florida. But I've kind of like taken it a little bit easier this summer because we did so much traveling last summer. So I stayed home. Usually we go to Indiana, like I said, Florida. So I'm racing more locally this time around, focusing on some other things, managing the team. The team is online right now. In past years, the team racing has been live in person, but since COVID, it's been virtual. And they are trying to move it back to live racing. So I'm managing that team, and we're doing that online, and we start back up at the end of the month. So we'll have some recording days, and then they'll start airing some races.
And,
But we recently had a pilot go to Dubai for an exhibition online race to kind of just expose more people to drone racing, because a lot of people don't know what it is. And when you see it in person, you're mesmerized, you're instantly curious.
well, talk about the growth of the sport because obviously, like DRL is on TV. I don't know if you're familiar. There's another Major League Drone Racing
Yeah.
that's here in Arizona and in a few other states. Talk to me about the progression of the sport. Where do you see it going?
Yeah, I think it's really picked up quite a bit. There was a lull with COVID, and I think it's kind of like picking up more because DRL went virtual. Before COVID, they had people in stadiums watching them. So they got back to that. They had a final in Miami last year, or not too long ago. And of course, multi-GP is going strong. We had a few extra 100 people, I think, compete in the global qualifier this year compared to last year. Drone Champions League, like I said, is trying to get back to in-person racing. So I think it's definitely becoming more and more popular. I have local people all the time trying to get into the hobby. I think it's becoming more popular in schools, so we'll see it grow as that becomes more of a thing too. And I think the cinematic side, your side of it, I think some of those pilots are getting interested in the FPV. DJI has the FPV drone now. And a lot of the pilots who do FPV have transitioned to the cinematic side, and they're flying in big movies with their FPV drones. So it's really cool to kind of see the different drone aspects come together like that. And I think it will only grow the hobby more.
Yeah, and I think you're right. Like, it used to be like FPV racing and FPV cinematography was almost like two different worlds, and it looks like they're merging because at the end of the day, I think the main skill here is the piloting,
Yeah.
which in normal aerial cinematography and what I do, the piloting is the easy part, the cinematography is the hardest part. But in FPV, I think it's reverse. It's still about the pilot skill
Yeah.
set.
Right.
Well, so talk to me about your hours, your training. How much time do you put into your skills?
Well, I'm a teacher, so that works out really well for me because I have the summer off, so I'm able to practice weekly. I set up tracks at my house a lot in the backyard. I'm always switching them out to new tracks. I'll set up ones at local fields, but I race a lot in Massachusetts and New Hampshire. Those are probably the two places I race the most. We have a big crew here in the Northeast, but I hear a lot about the Arizona drone racing, especially their night racing with all the LED gates. I'd love to get out there and see that. And I've heard about Major League Drone Racing. I think they're out west mostly now, but I'm hoping they come to the east because I would love to participate in that too. But just training through the summer. We have unfortunately had a bunch of races canceled this summer. Our weather's been just like constant rain. So I have the one this weekend I'm hoping to get to. And then our season goes until probably November. And then once November hits, these little guys again. So I'll show you the difference. This is like my 5-inch racing drone because like the propellers are 5 inches. And then this is the indoor drone. So we'll go back to these in November. This is just kind of past the time.
Do you still, even with the mini, and is that the mini whoop? Is that what you call those, the little one?
These are called tiny whoops.
Tiny whoops.
That's what people call them, yeah.
Do you still get some of that same feel as far as the practice on the stick? I mean, I'm sure the adrenaline is different, but as far as the stick muscle memory, do you still get that with that?
I think it's good to an extent, but honestly, I don't think it benefits me very much because there are different flying modes, as you probably know. There's acro, where you can flip and roll, which is what I fly with these big guys outdoors. But the little tiny whoops, I haven't transitioned to that mode yet. So I'm flying stability or angle mode. So it's kind of leveling itself out and correcting itself. I still have full manual control over it. So I think it hinders me a little bit because I can't flip and I can't roll. So it's kind of limiting me. And then I go back to these and I've got full reign.
Yeah, especially when we see you.
Helps a lot. Sorry.
Yeah, well, especially when we see you practice in your backyard and all you do is flip and roll. I bet it would be a little tricky. When you practice in your backyard, same thing? Do you set yourself a course and you say, I have to go through this particular order, or do you just kind of fly through the obstacles?
Sometimes I'll just fly through the obstacles. Sometimes I'll pick a few obstacles and practice certain things. Like there's something called a corkscrew where you go through 3 gates spiraling. Maybe I'll practice that. Or I have a dive gate and I'll just do dive after dive after dive. So sometimes just practicing certain elements. But I'll usually have a course where I say I have to go a certain way.
And I'm also curious about the simulator. Do you get those sensations too on the simulator? Is it like, because I watch it, I'm like, man, it's so realistic. But from your perspective, do you still get the same feel?
Yeah, I think it is pretty good. There is definitely a difference. It feels like a little bit more floaty. And on the simulator, I'm flying a 7-inch quad because Drone Champions League is larger drones a little bit. And I'm flying a 5-inch drone. So they're heavier and they're a little bit slower, honestly, but I can fly faster in a simulator because the worry of crashing and, having to buy new parts or repair your drone, or even like walking the shame, doing the walk of shame to go get your drone. You don't have to do any of that. So it's really nice to have that to practice with, especially when it's like you can't fly outside, because once it gets cold, the ground's really hard, and once you hit the ground, you'll explode your stuff. I will set up gates in the snow a little bit, and I'll usually have my hair dryer on standby because if you crash, you're gonna get it soaked.
Listen, I'm in Arizona. We don't understand what you just said.
Yeah, you're like, what's that?
But I guess I can relate. We wouldn't do that in the summertime either. So, so in what you race, does everybody have the same equipment, or is it still pretty different from racer to racer?
Well, everyone builds their own drone, so it's all custom. And I have a bunch of sponsors, so I fly certain, gem fan propellers, D-quad frames. So a lot of people who have sponsors are committed to those brands. And a lot of those brands are the top brands. So, most people are flying just, 3 or 4 or 5, maybe different brands. And yeah. The frames, for example, these frames, there's only really 2 or 3 companies that are like really popular that everyone's flying.
But from a technology or a performance base, are they pretty similar, even though they're using different components?
Good question. I fly a lot of open class. So, and drone racing is great because anyone can do it. you know, people who are in a wheelchair, people who are 80 years old, people who are 10 years old. It's just anyone can do it. It doesn't matter. So we have some people flying little guys like this that are just, you know, a couple inch propeller. And then we have people like flying the big ones like me. We have different batteries. So I fly 6S, which is a little bit more powerful battery. You could fly 4S if you wanted to. That's what I started with. So people kind of will do different things like that. They really focus on getting the weight down, though. The lighter it is, the faster it's going to fly.
So you mentioned that you're a teacher. We have some footage of you flying in your classroom. Talk to me about the kids and kind of like their approach to seeing drones. Like that's the generation that just grew up with it, right? So what is that going to look like later on?
I know. I'm excited for them. Over the years, I've kind of introduced it slowly in my classroom, and this past year was the first year I had the kids flying. They were flying those little indoor ones that I showed you, and they don't even have a camera on them, so they were just doing line of sight, you know, toy drones off of Amazon. So they just love it. They adore it, and they always want to fly. And they're, you know, I set it as a reward, so some of them will they earn, you know, prizes throughout the time, and they'll spend it to fly the drone. But it's cool because I'll be able to show them, you know, it's not an easy hobby. It's something you definitely have to work at, and you're gonna, you know, like I said, break your drone. You're gonna have to repair it. You're gonna get frustrated a lot. But flying makes it all worth it. And it's cool that I'm able to show them, you know, that I'm setting goals, that I'm persevering through these challenges, and that I'm able to be successful with hard work. And it's not just in the classroom, but outside the classroom. So I'm glad I can show them that.
Yeah. You mentioned like the fact that it's become a little bit more popular. Do you see a specific type of people that get into the sports, or like you're saying, it's super a variety of people, like from like you're saying, the 80-year-old all the way down to the kids?
Well, there's definitely a lot of engineers who fly. I'm not going to lie there. There's tons of engineers. But it really is for everybody, like I said. And when I look at the kids, all kids like it. You know, it's not just those nerdy kids. The sport, my best flying kid was the most athletic kid in the classroom, actually.
Yeah.
So, like I said, it's for everybody. And next school year, which is coming up soon, I'm starting a club once a week. So I'm taking it even further this year, coming up. For middle school kids. So I teach 4th grade, so I'm going to go up to a little bit higher level kids to get them maybe building a little bit, because there are different types of drones that you can build where you don't have to solder, and it's all plug and play. And there's something called drone soccer that I want to show them. So I'm hoping that with this push in STEM in schools and having a drone club, we'll see more people getting into aviation. I mean, it doesn't even have to be drones. We need pilots, that's for sure.
Yeah, no, it's just kind of like the entry to a bunch of different science aspect, for sure. Talk to me about the women's team that you have, and the role and the how well women are doing in this sport.
So I'm actually co-managing the team with someone else. She owns Drone Zone, New Jersey. Her name is Diane. And I'm also a pilot on the team, and we have 7 other women from all over the world, Taiwan, here in the USA, South Korea, Ireland, just all over the world. It's really fun to bring everybody together. Hard with time zones, but fun.
It's early for some people.
Yeah. And racing is tough because everyone's from all over the world. The teams are from all over the world. There's a team based in China, there's a team based in Spain, you know. So I had to fly a race at 3 a.m. You know, I had to be up at 3 a.m. all the way to 10 a.m. So it is tough, but it is a lot of fun getting everybody together, because when we race locally, we don't fly with other women. We don't fly with other females. I have to go to a national or an international race to be able to do it. So to build these connections and inspire more girls and women to fly is what our goal is. And we've done that already. We've had women reach out to us to join our team. We're starting back up at the end of the month, and we can add 2 pilots to our team. And we've already had a bunch message asking to be on it. So it's really exciting to see where the sport is headed. And these women are all talented. They're competing alongside the men, getting to the semifinals. So they're not, they're not at the bottom of the rankings. They're doing really well.
Yeah, I mean, you would think that, there is no limitation on why a woman shouldn't do as well or better than a man. Like this one is kind of like it levels the playing field, right?
Right. Yeah. I'm just not sure why there's so few that do it.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I'm sure, and I'm guessing it's kind of the same in most industry. It's more like from an early on, they're not exposed to some of those things, and then it just gets, further down the line, and it's the same problem. But yeah, I think you're doing a great job. Like more young girls see you and see what you do. I'm sure they'll want to join in. So where can they find information? Where can they go to learn more about your team?
Well, they can go to our Mach 1 Facebook page. We have a group and a page, and we have an Instagram, so they can find us there. They can reach out to me at any point, Mako Reactra. I'm on Instagram as well. So
good. Let's talk about the World Games a little bit. So you mentioned you represented the U.S. in 2022. Was it in Birmingham or Alabama?
Birmingham.
Yeah. Talk to me about that experience. What was it like for you to put on the USA jersey?
It's so hard to talk about. I almost have imposter syndrome because never when I started flying did I think I would be competing at that level, the global stage. And in the World Games, I had never even heard of it, so I had to do some research. It's very similar to the Olympics. It's like the step before the Olympics, and the Olympic Committee, oversees it. And if a sport becomes an Olympic sport, that is often the avenue it takes. So it's a lot of interesting sports. It's, I didn't get to see, but on the list there was sumo wrestling, parkour, disc golf, paragliding, something basic as baseball, so it was a great variety. And this year was drone racing's inaugural year. So to think that it's sort of like a tech e-sport type of sport, to include that is really kind of special. It's just so different, and maybe that will be a gateway to other sports similar to that. But it happened in Birmingham, Alabama. It took place over about a week. They basically closed down the city. It was beautiful. We stayed on campus at the college. All the athletes stayed there, which is so weird to say athlete. Like, who would think a drone racer would be an athlete? But so we stayed on campus, it was just really cool getting there and seeing everybody in their jerseys, all the different countries for all the different sports. It was just sort of a sensory overload. And then the opening ceremony, gosh, I almost went right into the racing. But the opening ceremony was something similarly to what you'd see at the Olympics. Performances, everyone came out with their flags and their uniforms, the stands were filled. And it was really exciting to have it in the US because we got to feel that sort of home field advantage. Everyone was just so excited to see the whole US team come out. So that was a huge moment, just seeing everybody. It was so overwhelming. And then we sat down and got to see the performances and the fireworks. And then finally we got down to business. We did qualifying the first day, and we got to fly 4 to 5 rounds on the track. And they had released it earlier on simulator, so it was great. We already knew the track. It was just like finally flying in person. And to my relief, I felt like it was easier in person than it was on the simulator. So it was nice because I'm used to flying in grassy fields. That's typically where a drone race happens. I know DRL is different, but the local races, multi-GP around the country is all basically field racing. So this was in a stadium, metal stands. We're used to crashing in soft grass, not metal stands. So crashing was not forgiving. Anyone who crashed basically destroyed their drone. And they allowed us 3 drones and spare parts galore if we wanted to repair or rebuild. We had to have LEDs on them because there were going to be spectators, and we don't get a lot of spectators in local drone racing. It's hard to follow a drone going at that speed. So they asked us to put on 40 LEDs. I'm going to plug it in for you. So it looked pretty cool at night. And
Nice.
you could change the color of them. So like I flew under pink and then I flew under yellow, and that way people know who is who. So after our qualifying, I did my rounds and I was really excited because, well, first it poured and I only got a few rounds in. So I was really nervous about having that big break in between and then coming back the next day. But I got my best time my last round. And then we went into bracket racing. So that's basically double elimination. You go up against a total of 4 people. So I didn't get very far in bracket racing, unfortunately. But we had 10 women there. And that is like the first time I've ever flown with that many women in my life. It was so incredible to have 10 women there. And a total of 32 people flying.
Wow.
So there was 1 male and 1 female from racing from each country for the most part. So I came in 5th for female and I came in like 27th overall. So
listen, there's nothing to be ashamed about that. That's amazing, actually.
Yeah, I was so just in awe of being there. I thought I was going to be a lot more nervous flying, and thankfully I wasn't. And it was really cool meeting the other pilots because these are people that I only really see online usually. And, you know, they're the top pilots all around the world. So that was one of my favorite things, was meeting everybody that I look up to.
And where are the top pilots? Is there a specific country that's really, really good? Or is it just kind of like everywhere?
USA has quite a few really good pilots. And I think was it last year? There's one pilot in particular, his name is Neukel, and he actually lives within a couple hours of me, and I race with him, and he's always in the top 3. So he's really good here in the US. MCK, Min-Chin Kim, he's a popular name. He won DRL this year. He's from South Korea. He's really good. He's probably the best in the world right now.
That's so cool. So how would you encourage anybody? What would you say the steps are in order for them to start getting into the sport?
I think finding other people that do in your area is really important because it's hard to find races. We had to set up our own races for a while to make it happen. And so it's always been like a real team effort. Everyone comes from states all over to help out. So if you find that group of people, multigp.com, that is the racing league that I belong to, and it's the biggest racing league in the world. So you'll find a chapter. There's usually chapters in every state. So you can find that group of people, and they perhaps are running races already, and you can join in with them. A lot of them fly freestyle too, so if you're not into racing, you can do that sort of thing. And really, we're so open to beginners. Like, you can come and you don't even have to fly the track the way it's designed. You know, we want you to just come and have fun. So no matter how much experience you have, you're welcome.
That's awesome. And I saw on your, I think your YouTube channel, you have some videos where you are just freestyling or maybe even getting into the cinematography side of things a little bit. I think there's some where you and your husband are flying together. So talk to me a little bit about that transition towards the cinematography side.
Yeah, I've always loved photography. I thought I was going to be a photographer for a while, so I think it totally just makes sense. And we have such great landscape and seascape up here in Maine with, you know, lighthouses, the ocean, we have marshes, we have mountains. So I just, you know, you can't race all year. You have to spice it up a little bit and do some other things. So we love doing chasing jobs. Like, we've chased some snowmobiles and did a job as an advertisement for a snowmobile company. I fly inside a lot. I love flying in schools. I'm doing a school job coming up soon because they just built a new school and they want to show the families. I love, like I said, chasing things, chasing race cars. I've done that a little bit. RC boats, other drones. So yeah, all of that stuff is a lot of fun. There's just so much you can do with drones. You'll never be bored.
No, that's true. What's next for you? Any big plans, or what you're looking forward to?
Oh, right now I just have to think about going back to school, unfortunately. So I've got to get the drone club going. That will be fun. I've got to buy some drone kits that are already put together and a drone soccer ball. I'll show you real quick. I was telling you I'm going to get them into that because they have this casing around them. So it's a nice step before you get into, you know, the propellers being so exposed.
That's so cool. Is that so? You mentioned drone soccer. Is that what that is?
Yeah. You can fly them, and you can fly them through a goal. So there's 2 teams.
And then do they try to like stop it? Like they have a goalie?
Yeah, they have a goal. They have defense that they just like hit off each other, you know, and then they have only one person who's offense. So that's kind of, you know.
That's awesome. Well, listen, thank you so much for joining us. I really, really appreciate your time. I think this was great. And we'll make sure we'll send people to your Instagram and all the different teams you mentioned. We'll put all those links in there. But good luck to you. We're looking forward to seeing where it takes you next.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to see how the Drone Film Festival goes.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we try to do some races there too. I mean, we do the mini ones. I think it's the mini whoop they do, not or maybe the tiny. But yeah, that's great. I think last year we had 2 teams from the NLDR that came out, and they were not supposed to fly, but they couldn't help it. And so eventually, like, I just heard this huge, crazy, like, almost like Formula One sound coming, and I looked around and he was just zipping around everywhere. But like, you guys are so in control of those drones. It was unbelievable to, you know, because we have a flight area that was pretty small, but to see him like be able to control that drone within that area was just absolutely amazing. So I got to find ways to unleash that a little bit and let them demo that a little bit more. But we would love to have you at some point. It would be awesome to have you be a part of that. So hopefully we can chat in the near future, okay?
All right. Talk soon.
Thank you for listening to US DroneCast. For more information about upcoming episodes and to learn more about our upcoming Drone Film Festival, subscribe now and follow us on social or visit us online at usdronecast.com.